This commission started with some inquiries from more than one quartet, as many as 2 or 3, asking was I going to write a 6th quartet, and for a while I wasn't sure. And then I became very sure. The Lark Quartet was probably the first group to speak to me, but really what it turned out to be about was my decision that this was something that I was going to put very far forward, and actually moved some things on my schedule to be able to get to it at this point. I had 2 ideas in starting out on this quartet. One was I wanted to write a quartet in which the first violin was a protagonist, and you would say, well, that's what the quartet was trying to move away from most of its early history. And that was really why I wanted to go back there. Some of the great early Haydn quartets seemed to be dominated by the personality of the first violinist. And I thought this would be a nicely out-of-fashion, interesting thing to project in this piece. So the first and last parts of this quartet are strongly dominated by the personality of the first violin. That was for another reason, which is I had a kind of a progression, a scenic progression in this piece that had to do with recovery from illness, and not my own, but recovery from illness as an interesting subject for which the first violinist could serve as a kind of protagonist. And of course I knew a quartet by Beethoven, one in A minor, where an entire movement is devoted to this dialectic in very Beethoven fashion that is extremely sort of graphically portrayed states of despair and recovery. That's not what happens in this piece, but it is inspiring to think that that is a possible subject for musical reflection, and that's really what this quartet became. I wrote this quartet in the 3 places that I mostly frequent lately. Tanglewood, where I have probably sometimes the most uninterrupted time. I'd say interrupted, but uninterrupted because it's very focused in terms of subject matter. And Wisconsin, where I have been less lately because of Tanglewood, but where I also have a very good workspace. And Cambridge, where I've lately taught myself to work with very small spaces. So I used to disdain the idea that I could do anything in 15 or 20 minutes, but if I walk around with a train of thought, I sometimes have found that the 20-minute segment of the day can be as useful as 4 hours used to be 10 years ago. As a listener at the premiere, I try to think of myself as a listener, that is to say, not as a composer. I've lately come to even counsel students to listen to the audience when they're having music played. And I used to think that was almost a secondary concern, that we were about figuring out how to write it. But I think we're also about having to figure out how to listen to it. And one of the things that I am measuring at a first performance particularly is that balance that every piece I feel has to have between the inner ear, which is some of the very interesting things you think about as a composer, often pathways that you haven't been on before, and the outer ear, which is how most people are going to listen, that is, they come to it without knowing what is going to happen. And putting yourself back to the point where you don't know what's going to happen is what I find probably most useful for kind of a calibration for what you've done.